Let me paint you a picture. Downtown loft. Exposed brick. Artisan espresso machine I never figured out how to use. And my wife, Serena, lounging around in Lululemon like she's the damn queen of the Citadel. She's 42, looks 32, and acts 22. We've been married for 7 years. Feels more like 7 leases. I'm 45. I flip buildings for a living. Real estate investor, not the TikTok kind, the actual kind. The kind that's up at 4 a.m. because tenants in a duplex think the water heater sounds possessed. Yeah, that kind. But hey, it pays well, and I sleep in Egyptian cotton. Used to sleep, anyway. These days, I lie awake and listen to Serena ask Alexa to play jazz, and every damn time she does, the lights dim to a warm amber glow, like she's trying to seduce Miles Davis himself. At first, I figured she was just trying to keep the vibes alive. Or maybe she watched some influencer's husband-proof date night video on YouTube. But something about her tone didn't sit right with me. It wasn't, "Hey Alexa, play music." It was more like, "Alexa, play smooth jazz." You think I'm paranoid? Yeah, I thought so too. But then I noticed she only did it when I was in the room. And here's the kicker: 5 minutes after the music started, she'd always step out to take a bath or do yoga in the guest room. She'd dim all the lights in the place. Every single time. It wasn't romantic. It was scripted. So I did what any emotionally stunted man with too much money and too much free time would do. I started snooping. I remembered Alexa logs everything. Every request, every smart light adjustment, every voice command. Amazon has better records than the IRS. So I logged into our Echo account from my laptop. Simple enough. Guess what I found? Hundreds, I'm talking hundreds, of entries labeled drop-in accepted. For those of you who don't live in a smart home dystopia, drop-in is Amazon's version of a walkie-talkie. Someone on your contact list can literally appear on your Alexa device without needing approval. Just poof, they're in your living room, listening. The dates matched up. Every time she asked for music and dimmed the lights, someone was already dropping in. At this point, I could practically taste the betrayal. So I exported the log and cross-referenced the IPs using a tool I built back when I was trying to track down squatters. Took 5 minutes. The IP was my business partner's. Let that sink in. Marcus Langford. My oldest friend. The guy I built half my portfolio with. The guy who gave the best toast at our wedding, all smooth charm and fake humility. That guy was virtually strolling into my house through the Amazon Echo like some voice-activated Casanova. And Serena? She was putting on a show for him. Every damn night. Jazz, lights, yoga mat, the whole performance. You know what I did next? Nothing. Not at first, anyway. You don't play your hand when the pot's still building. I kept smiling, sipping burnt coffee, and pretending I didn't know my wife and my business partner had turned Alexa into a damn voyeuristic pipeline. They thought they were clever. That was cute. I spent the next week gathering footage. Because here's the thing about Alexa, she doesn't just listen. She records. Short bursts. Little audio clips. And once you know where to look, you can find gold. I pulled every 20-second clip from the drop-in sessions. Some were tame. Others, well, let's just say Marcus has a very specific laugh. The kind you never forget once you've heard it echo through your kitchen. But it wasn't just the affair. It was the plan. Marcus was whispering to her about pitching a new real estate startup. My startup. Using my capital, my properties, and her help on the side. She was feeding him info from our private finances, stuff even my accountant barely knew. They weren't just cheating. They were plotting. So I started plotting too. And trust me, if you think the betrayal was twisted, wait till you hear how I turned their little jazz sessions into the most humiliating viral podcast episode you've never heard. You ever sit across from someone at dinner and wonder if they're picturing someone else while they chew their salmon? That's where I found myself on a Wednesday night, candlelit table for two, $85 bottle of red, and Serena dressed like she just left a date with an architect from a Netflix show. Her eyes flicked across the room every time the door opened, like she was waiting for the waiter to morph into Marcus Langford. I just smiled and offered more wine. She didn't notice me watching. Not really. Not the way I used to watch her back before Alexa started turning our home into a theater stage. These days, I wasn't watching because I loved her. I was watching because I was building a case. A slow, painful case with receipts, logs, timestamps, and soon, a conclusion that would knock both of them off their polished, candle-scented pedestal. See, once I confirmed Marcus was dropping in through our Echo, usually when I was home, and she thought I was too preoccupied with spreadsheets or tenants who thought their toilet was possessed. I got systematic. I set up a dummy Echo Dot in the guest room and renamed it Study. I told Serena I'd be using it to play ambient focus music while I worked. She barely blinked. But what that dot actually did was reroute its audio stream to my laptop. Every time someone said, "Alexa," it recorded. I know, I should have been in the NSA. Missed my calling. And it worked. Over the next 6 days, I got everything. "Oh, that shirt makes you look like trouble," she whispered once. "I miss hearing your voice in the morning," Marcus said another time, voice all hushed and buttery, like a bad audiobook narrator. And then this little Jim, he still has no idea. He thinks I'm meditating. Yeah, meditating. With jazz, yoga pants, and a drop-in intimacy hotline. By Friday, I had over 45 minutes of cherry-picked audio, just the two of them flirting like teenagers. One of the recordings had Marcus asking, "When can we talk about the startup pitch again?" "He'll bite if you frame it as diversification." She giggled and said, "I'll slip it in during brunch." You know how he loves mimosas. I stopped drinking mimosas that day. Anyway, now that I had enough audio to fill a Spotify podcast episode, I started planning my response. Revenge, sure, but not the loud kind. Not the throw a drink, cry in the rain, Hallmark drama. No. I wanted this clean. I wanted this cold. I wanted this to echo in their ears every time someone mentioned smart homes. So I leaned into my side hustle, a podcast. Not one of those corny men's advice things where I yell into a microphone about protein powder and alpha energy. No, mine was a niche real estate podcast called Brick by Brick. 10,000 listeners a week. Mostly agents, investors, the occasional hedge fund dork looking for passive income tips. It wasn't massive, but it was targeted. This next episode? I labeled it as Special Edition. I started with my usual opening, "Hey folks, it's Daniel Cole, back with another episode of Brick by Brick." But instead of diving into cap rates or triple net leases, I said, "Today's topic? Home automation and betrayal. Ever wonder what your smart devices are really hearing? Let me tell you a story." Then came the clips. I interspersed them between sarcastic narration. I blurred names, used voice modifiers, kept everything technically anonymous. But if you knew us, if you'd ever stepped foot into our apartment or sat at brunch with us, you'd know. I made sure of it. Every time Marcus said something like, "He'll never know," I'd pause and add my commentary. "Oh, Marcus, sweetie, if I had $1 for every time I let you pitch me a failing idea, I'd have enough to buy your apartment and evict you from it." But let's keep going. I uploaded the episode that Sunday night. Scheduled it for release at 7 a.m. Monday, just in time for morning commutes. And then, I waited. Now, Serena had no idea I even recorded podcasts. That was something I did in the office/second bedroom/forgotten part of our marriage. She thought it was just a hobby I never got around to deleting. She didn't know I had listeners. She didn't know I had rage layered in digital stereo. Monday morning came, and by 10:42 a.m., I got the first text from a friend in our real estate circle. "Dude, is that you?" Then another. "Holy S ***T. That's Marcus, isn't it? You cold, man." By noon, Marcus's Instagram, the one where he posted motivational quotes like "trust is earned, not given," was locked. Private. By 3 p.m., I got a message from an intern at his firm. "Hey, not to be weird, but HR just had a meeting about inappropriate use of tech at home. I think something's going down." I didn't respond. At 5:17 p.m., Serena called. First time in weeks she'd really called me. I didn't pick up. She tried again. And again. Then came the texts. "Daniel, what is this podcast? Where did you get that audio? How dare you air our private life?" Funny how she used the word, "our," like she hadn't invited Marcus into it. Then came the kicker. "You ruined his job. You humiliated me." That's when I replied. One sentence. "And Alexa says hi." That shut her up for the night. But I wasn't done. Because, remember, Marcus had a little startup plan, right? A pitch he was building. The one Serena was supposed to help grease with my money? Yeah, I intercepted that too. Couple weeks back, I found the pitch deck in our shared Dropbox. Serena had no idea I still had access. She was even dumb enough to name the file greenstone_v1_final_final, like she's an intern on her first week. I took the deck, reworked the numbers, stripped out his projections, flipped the narrative to a much leaner, realistic version of the same model, and submitted my version of the pitch, solo to a mid-level VC firm I'd been talking to for months. And guess what? They bid $2.2 million in seed funding. Mine. Marcus didn't even know I'd snaked it until he tried to pitch 2 weeks later and got laughed out of the room by the same VC I now had on my board. Last I heard, he was trying to start something crypto-adjacent with another ex-frat bro who once sold knives door-to-door. Serena? She's still in the loft. For now. But if she thinks this ends with a podcast and a pitch, she's got another thing coming. Because the next move? Let's just say the lease on that loft is about to change hands. And they're both about to get the most poetic eviction notice they've ever read. I've always said there's no sweeter sound than a closing offer. The signing of the last page, the clink of a glass when you toast the deal, it's an orchestra of profit. But after the podcast stunt and that VC pitch, I found a new contender for sweetest sound. A legal eviction notice, sealed, time-stamped, and hand-delivered to your soon-to-be ex-wife, who doesn't know you bought the building she's living in. Yet, let me back up. See, Serena and Marcus, dynamic duo of jazz-fueled betrayal, they thought they were operating in the dark. Whispered calls, secret drop-ins, pillow talk masquerading as pillow fights. But what they didn't realize was, while they were planning to use my funds to launch Greenstone, I was busy buying the ground under their feet. Literally. You ever hear of a real estate maneuver called a stealth title transfer? No? Most people haven't. Let's just say when you've got enough LLCs to start your own alphabet soup, and a property manager who owes you a favor or two from a Vegas incident involving a Ferris wheel and a missing alpaca, you can do a lot of things quietly. 3 weeks before I aired that podcast, I acquired majority ownership of our building, the entire 6-unit modernized warehouse conversion Serena insisted we move into because it had character. She wanted exposed beams and natural light. I gave her leverage and quiet dominance. Technically, it was 2 LLCs doing the deal. One backed by me, the other a silent partner in Denver who doesn't actually exist, just a legal fiction holding a couple of passive properties and generating enough paper trail to keep the IRS content. It cost me less than the Tesla Serena once accidentally dented while parking next to a juice bar. So now I was the landlord. Well, she didn't know it yet, but she was about to. Because after the podcast went viral and Marcus's pitch tanked harder than a crypto coin in a bear market, I started receiving polite little pings. First from her friends, then her cousin, then her. Daniel, we need to talk. Please just call me back. Please. Why are you doing this? Oh, honey, I'm just getting started. I ignored her texts like she ignored the wedding vows. And I made sure my property manager sent all formal communications to Ms. Serena Langford. Yeah, she changed her name in secret 3 months ago, through traditional channels. Envelope. Courier. Signature required. When the notice hit, I wish I could have seen her face. I imagine she was sitting on that faux vintage couch she made me overpay for, sipping wine from one of those oversized glasses that make you feel like you're about to spill secrets instead of Cabernet. Maybe she was in yoga pants again. Maybe she was about to say, Alexa, play Sod, and start her evening charade. Instead, she opened the envelope. Notice of non-renewal of tenancy, Unit 4B. Boom. Now let me be clear, this wasn't a rage move. This was chess. Every square. Every pawn. Because I wasn't just booting her from the unit, I was buying time for part 2 of my revenge, turning their cozy cheating den into a luxury Airbnb with a real-time podcast feed. Yeah, I was monetizing their betrayal. Call it poetic real estate. The best part? The non-renewal came with a 60-day timer. That meant she had 2 months to pack up her yoga mats, crystal water bottles, and betrayal-shaped throw pillows and find a new place to live. Oh, and Marcus? He was squatting in a corporate crash pad in Jersey, last I heard. Turns out the startup world isn't kind of guys who can't close deals without pillow talk. Here's the twist I didn't plan for, though Serena didn't rage. She didn't cry. She didn't even call me screaming. She showed up. In person. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m. I was in the middle of editing the next podcast episode. I heard the knock 3 times, soft, like she thought she was still welcome. When I opened the door, she was standing there in a cream-colored coat I bought her last Christmas, the one she said made her feel like a CEO's wife. Ironic. Daniel, she said, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I made a point of not inviting her in. Let her sweat in the hallway. Talk? I asked. Is this about the podcast episode or the lease ending? Or are you here to sell me on Greenstone 2.0? She flinched. Not visibly. No, Serena was too trained for that. but her eyes twitched. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. "I made a mistake," she said, voice calm. I was confused. Marcus, it wasn't what I thought. "Oh, I know," I said. "He thought he could pitch me. You thought you could soften the blow. Team effort. Strong communication skills. It's cute." She stepped forward. I didn't move. "Daniel, please. I miss you. We can fix this." Fix. That word hit me like a hammer wrapped in silk. Fix, like this was a leaky pipe. Like this wasn't betrayal in surround sound. I laughed. Not loud. Just enough for her to hear the cracks under it. "You know what I've learned in the past few weeks, Serena?" I said. "You can automate your lights. You can automate your coffee maker. But you can't automate loyalty." She blinked. Then she said it, the line that sealed the coffin for good. It didn't mean anything. It was just noise. Noise. That's what she called the calls, the whispers, the soft moans caught in the smart speaker feed. Noise. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Funny. That noise just got optioned by a true crime podcast network. That one landed. Hard." Her jaw moved, but no words came out. I shut the door before she could conjure any. I didn't need her apology. I didn't want closure. I wanted consequence. She texted me 3 times that night, then once the next day. Then she went quiet. I knew what that meant. She was either plotting or sulking. Maybe both. She'd always been a dual-function device. Meanwhile, I sent my contractor the green light. Unit 4B renovation begins next week. New floors, new paint, new custom shelving for podcast gear. The crown jewel? A hidden mic system embedded in the new sconces. Don't worry, it's legal. Tenants have to opt in. And I'd make sure the disclosures were clear. Why? Because this next podcast season, it's not about betrayal. It's about rebuilding. Not metaphorically. Literally. Each week, I'd walk listeners through the transformation of a luxury loft from cheater's hideaway to content creator's dream suite. Think of it as HGTV meets Dateline. Serena had her moment in the audio spotlight. Now it was mine. And trust me, this show, it was just getting started. There's a special kind of joy in renovating a space where betrayal happened. It's not just tearing out old floors or repainting walls. It's surgical. Every tile you rip up, every fixture you unscrew, it's a reset button. It's power in drywall form. The morning demo started. I was sipping black coffee in the empty shell of Unit 4B, watching my contractor rip out the foam marble backsplash Serena once insisted gave the place Parisian energy. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was actually vinyl from Home Depot and looked more like a dentist's office than a bistro. But now, it was gone. Just like her. The old bed? Trashed. The mirrors she had installed for light? Removed. What was going in instead? A platform bed built for aesthetic angles, studio lighting fixtures rigged into the ceiling beams, and acoustic foam panels disguised as modern art. This wasn't going to be just a loft. It was going to be a content creation palace, podcasting, streaming, voiceover work. A media-ready rental suite with a backstory that could fund 10 episodes before the first booking even dropped. And I was the narrator, the architect of her downfall and the host of the afterparty. 2 days into demo, I posted a teaser video online. Just a 30-second clip, nothing more. Me, standing in the gutted bedroom. Caption, turning betrayal into real estate. Coming soon, the Echo Room. The views spiked. At first, it was mostly my podcast fans commenting. Wait, this is that apartment? Bro, this is better than fiction. The Echo Room. Gotta admit, that's brilliant. And then came the emails. Real estate bloggers. Mid-tier YouTubers who covered viral scandals. A property investor in Miami who wanted to license the design template. But the best email? Came from a woman named Amanda, who ran an emotional damage tourism newsletter. No, I'm not kidding. Her words. She featured vacation rentals with sordid pasts, murder houses, celebrity breakups, spiritual cult escapes turned Airbnbs. Apparently, there was a whole niche for people who wanted to sleep where other people's lives exploded. She wanted to feature the Echo Room in her next issue. I told her yes. Within a week, I had a waitlist, people lining up to book a night in the infamous loft where the wife and business partner plotted betrayal through Alexa. I leaned into the myth. Why not? The apartment already had a built-in narrative. I just had to package it. The framed artwork on the wall? A transcript of one of Serena's jazz-drenched drop-in sessions, written in modern serif font. Guests could scan a QR code and listen to the sanitized audio version. I even included a pair of noise-canceling headphones for full immersion. The guest welcome packet? Typed on Alexa blue paper. Signed, Yours in truth, Daniel Cole. Yeah, I was that petty. Now, don't think for a second Serena didn't notice. Once the teaser video dropped, she came back online. No more calls, just social media. She started posting again. At first, it was passive. A black and white photo of her sipping tea, captioned, "Some people turn pain into art. Others into real estate. I prefer healing." Cue the fake deep. Then came the not-so-passive. She uploaded a long-winded Instagram story about narcissistic exes using technology to exploit women. Claimed she was being stalked, manipulated, emotionally abused through audio surveillance. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. Our mutuals knew. Hell, most of them had listened to the podcast. Some were even on the wait list for the Echo Room. You can't pay for that kind of poetic irony. Marcus, on the other hand, had gone dark. No more 10 Habits of Top Earners posts. No selfies at rooftop bars pretending to be deep in thought. Last I checked, his LinkedIn said currently exploring new opportunities, which I guess is code for unemployed and Googling how to fix your own resume. By now, Serena was out of Unit 4B. The 60-day timer ended. She moved out on day 58. No dramatic goodbyes. No tears on the pavement. But she did leave one thing behind. A letter. Old school. Handwritten. Folded in half and tucked under the door. I debated reading it. For about 5 seconds. Inside? A single page. Neatly written. No perfume. No smudges. Daniel, you always did love your projects. I hope turning me into one gave you what you needed. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not for Marcus. Not for the lies. I'm sorry you were always alone, even when I was next to you. Serena. Cute. Poetic. Even. I stuck it in the drawer labeled past, poured another coffee, and got back to work. Because now, it wasn't about her. Not anymore. It was about the launch. The Echo Room's first guest was a woman named Elena. Late 20s. Podcast host. She booked a 3-night stay and messaged me beforehand. "I've followed your story since the podcast dropped. Can I record an episode in the room? Would be iconic." I told her yes and gave her a 15% discount for tagging the property on social. When she checked in, she brought a portable mic rig and a bottle of champagne. Left a 5-star review that ended with, "Best acoustics I've ever cried in." By week 2, I had 6 bookings. By the end of the month, I was turning people away or pushing them to a waitlist. People weren't just renting the room. They were stepping into the story. And that's when the calls started. Media types. Morning shows. A popular YouTuber who covers scandalous real estate stories messaged me. "Would you be open to a collab? I'd love to do a walkthrough of the Echo Room with commentary." I said sure. But I had conditions. No mention of my full name. No contact with Serena. No access to any of the original audio unless cleared by my legal team. He agreed. The video? Titled The Alexa Affair Loft, Betrayal, Real Estate, and Revenge in One Airbnb. Within 48 hours, it hit 1 million views. Within 72, Serena posted a response video. Hair freshly curled. Voice trembling. Background softly lit like a therapy office. She said I manipulated the narrative. That I exploited a private relationship for profit. That I was emotionally cruel. I watched the whole thing while eating cereal. Didn't flinch. She ended it with, "No matter how much money he makes, or how many downloads he gets, he'll always be that lonely guy in the apartment, listening." I actually laughed out loud. Because she was right, but for the wrong reason. I was the guy listening, but not to her. Not anymore. Now, I was listening to Elena's podcast episode, recorded in the bed where Serena whispered lies. I was listening to guests talk about their heartbreak, their comebacks, their trauma-turned theater. The Echo Room had a voice, and it wasn't hers. So what comes next? Let's just say the waitlist just hit 6 months. I've been invited to speak at 2 podcasting conventions, and Netflix sent a courtesy inquiry asking if rights were available. But there's one last thing I haven't told you. One final twist I've been sitting on since the start. Let's just say Serena didn't walk away empty-handed. She left behind more than a letter. But for that, I've always believed in tying things up clean. No frayed ends, no lingering doubts, no whispered rumors that spin out of your control. In my line of work, real estate, renovation, revenge, the final product needs to shine. Polished floors, fresh paint, and a story arc so sharp it cuts glass. So when Serena left that letter, all half apology and poetic regret, I should have been satisfied. The podcast had gone viral. The Echo Room was fully booked for the next 6 months. My little audio stunt had become a business model. I had scorched the earth and planted new seeds in the ash. But then came the second letter. This one wasn't folded and slipped under my door. This one came certified mail. From an attorney. Let me be clear. I'm not easily rattled. I've been sued by HOA boards, shady contractors, even a guy who claimed a tree from my property blocked the moonlight in his hot tub. I've seen legal drama up close. But this was different. The envelope was thick, the return address unfamiliar. Inside, 12 pages of legalese outlining a potential civil case for invasion of privacy, emotional distress, and commercial exploitation, filed by none other than Serena Langford. Yep, she was suing me. The irony? She used one of my former lawyers, a woman who once helped me evict a tenant who turned his apartment into a reptile sanctuary. Serena's claim? That I had used unauthorized recordings to profit off our relationship, and that I'd defamed her by encouraging online harassment via the podcast. She even included screenshots of some of the comments. She deserves the walk of shame in every city. Imagine cheating and then getting turned into a cautionary tale. Honestly, those were pretty tame compared to what Reddit said. But I get it. She was cornered. The narrative wasn't hers anymore. So she did what she does best, play the victim and try to rewrite the story. What she didn't expect was that I had never actually broken the law. See, here's what Serena didn't know, or more likely, forgot. When we set up the Alexa devices, she was the one who enabled drop-in for Marcus. She was the one who checked the box marked record interactions for quality assurance. And she was the one who, 2 years ago, signed a household media release I kept on file for our family podcast that never materialized. That release? Still valid. Still signed. Still gold. I called my lawyer, not the reptile one, a better one, and we met over lunch at this brutalist cafe downtown where everything looks like it was designed by someone emotionally constipated. The place was perfect for conversations like this. He flipped through the documents, nodding as he read. Then he looked at me and said, "You're fine. She's throwing darts in the dark." I grinned. "Think she'll follow through?" He shrugged. "Maybe. But you've got leverage." That word stuck in my head, leverage. Because as much as I wanted to think this was over, there was still one nagging thread I hadn't pulled. And it had to do with what Serena really left behind. Not the letter. Not the lawsuit. I'm talking about the backup phone. You remember the Echo Room, right? Our shared loft, where she staged her little drop-in dramas. Well, during renovation, one of the contractors found something wedged behind the custom shelving unit she insisted we install for her books. Spoiler, Serena hadn't read anything longer than an Instagram caption since 2017. The contractor handed me a slim, rose gold iPhone, covered in dust, screen cracked. It still turned on. No lock screen. No passcode. Just open access. We plugged it in, and there it was, a digital time capsule. Messages. Photos. Notes. Voice memos. Most of it was mundane. Old selfies. Outfit planning. Notes like, "Remember, Daniel likes rosemary chicken." How thoughtful. But one folder stood out. Labeled J. At first, I thought maybe it was another lover. Maybe someone she'd been grooming as Marcus 2.0. But then I opened it. What I found was worse. Not another affair. A backup plan. C. J stood for journal. It was Serena's collection of voice notes and videos documenting her journey. A vlogging attempt. A digital diary. Dozens of files, each one dated and titled with nauseating earnestness. Day 4. Still not sure how I'll tell him. Day 17. Marcus says I should wait until after the launch. Day 38. I think he suspects something. She wasn't just cheating. She was documenting it. For content. She planned to launch her own podcast, Finding Serena, about navigating the complexities of modern relationships, identity, and personal freedom. She had scripts. Mood boards. Even a janky theme song she recorded in the Notes app using some royalty-free beat she downloaded from a shady site. But the worst one was titled The Reveal. In it, she was sitting on the bed, eyes red, mascara smudged just right, and she said, "If you're watching this, it means I've told him." Or he found out. Either way, this is the moment where I take control of my story. I know people will judge, but love is complicated, and I won't be ashamed of mine. Control of her story. That's what she wanted. Not just freedom, not just a new lover. A platform. An audience. A brand. She didn't just cheat on me. She monetized it in her head. Now, I didn't know what was more insulting, the betrayal or the fact that she thought Finding Serena was a good title. I sat with that phone for a full hour, listening to her dreams, her delusions, her carefully staged pain. And then, I smiled. Because now, I had leverage. The next morning, I had my lawyer draft a letter short and sweet. Dear counsel, attached as evidence your client intended to commercially exploit the relationship she now claims was misrepresented. This footage demonstrates both intent and documentation of her betrayal, which undermines the basis of her legal claim. Should she wish to proceed with litigation, we will file a cross-claim for malicious prosecution, along with release of the digital evidence to the public to demonstrate narrative manipulation. Warm regards. Daniel Cole's legal counsel. 2 days later, her attorney dropped the case. No call, no statement, just silence. And for once, she stayed offline. No quotes about healing, no vague captions, no frozen photos in yoga studios pretending to be reborn. Just gone. Which brings us to now. The Echo Room is still booked solid. The podcast gets 10 times the traffic it used to. I've launched a companion series, Echo After Dark. Listener-submitted stories of betrayal, all narrated by yours truly in the same voice I once used to say I do. And that phone? Still in my drawer. Because one day, when the time is right, when the brand is big enough, when the Echo Network becomes a production house, I'll tell the whole story. Her files, her words, her final performance. But for now, let her fade. Because I've already replaced her. And no, not with a person. With a platform. She wanted to be seen, to be heard, to have an audience. Now she's got one. She just doesn't control it. It started with a DM. A simple, 6-word message that slid into the podcast's official Instagram account like a snake under a locked door. I have a story to tell. No handle photo. No bio. Just the username, Serena at Echo. I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds, fingers hovering over the keyboard, half considering blocking her without another thought. But I didn't. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, and I was still human enough to feel its pull. So I responded, not the platform you once planned, but go on. The 3 little typing dots appeared instantly, then vanished, then reappeared. What followed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't begging, or threatening, or self-pitying. It was something more dangerous, calm, calculated. You got your win. Your audience. Your podcast. Your ego fed. But you're not the only one with a voice, Daniel. If you won't let me tell my version, someone else will. I should have blocked her right then. But here's the thing about people like Serena. They don't just threaten. They seek chaos. And I wanted to see how far she'd go. Not because I was afraid. Because I was prepared. She continued. There's a docuseries being developed. Independent production. Podcast scandals. True stories. They reached out after seeing the viral posts about the Echo Room. Of course they did. There's a hunger out there. A market for pain, betrayal, all neatly packaged with soft piano music and voiceovers whispering about emotional landscapes. She sent another message. They want to hear my side. And I'm going to give it to them. Unless. There it was. The leverage attempt. I smiled, leaned back in my chair, and waited. She sent it. Unless you sell the Echo Room. Take the podcast down. Delete the audio. Remove the videos. Walk away. Let me have the last word. I stared at the screen, stunned not by her gall that was expected, but by how little she understood the situation. She still thought this was about ego. About clout. About control. She didn't get it. Never had. So I responded, Serena, the Echo Room isn't about you. Not anymore. It's a monument, sure, but not to you. To the idea that the lie can be exposed. That sometimes the person who gets betrayed doesn't have to sit in silence. You thought you were the fire. Turns out, you were just the match. She didn't reply. Not then. But 2 days later, I got the link. A trailer. Voices in the static. Untold stories of the podcast generation. And there she was. Slow motion footage. Wind blowing her hair. Sitting in a white-walled room with a gray blanket draped over her lap like some trauma survivor fresh out of a Netflix special. Soft voiceover. Serena Langford was just another woman trying to find herself in a world dominated by male narratives, until her life became content. My blood didn't boil. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I smiled. Because what Serena didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that I had already anticipated this move months ago. The moment the podcast went viral, I trademarked the Echo Room. Not just the name, the story, the IP. Every version of the phrase connected to the podcast. The legal team I brought in wasn't just protecting me from lawsuits. They were prepping the next phase. Franchising, licensing, adaptation rights. And Serena Langford was not part of the package. The docuseries? They'd never contacted me, never requested a quote, never even asked for usage rights to the original podcast audio. They had just assumed I'd stay silent. That assumption. My lawyer sent them a cease and desist within hours. Copyright infringement, defamation, unauthorized use of registered branding. They pulled the trailer from every platform by morning. The next day, Serena posted a video on her personal account, probably the last one she'll ever make. She sat in silence for a full minute, blinking into the camera like she was trying to conjure tears. Then, in her softest voice, "There are two sides to every story, unless one side owns the copyright." I'll give her credit. That line was good. She always did have a way with words. Too bad she never used them honestly. But here's where things truly came full circle. That same afternoon, while I was prepping an episode titled, "The Echo Closes," a season finale I had planned as a quiet fade-out, I got a call. Not from a podcast listener. Not from a tabloid or journalist or YouTuber. From a producer. Netflix. They'd seen the cease and desist situation. They knew the story. They wanted the rights. Not to Serena's version. To mine. They wanted to turn the Echo Room into a limited series. 6 episodes. Psychological thriller. Fictionalized, of course, names changed, timelines adjusted. But the core? Intact. Man discovers betrayal through smart tech. Turns his pain into profit. Turns the tables. I asked one question. Can I narrate it? The producer laughed. That's what we were hoping. So now here we are. 1 year later. Serena's disappeared offline. The docuseries was never finished. Marcus opened a crypto startup with zero traction and no investors. He deleted his LinkedIn after a Reddit thread called him the Bluetooth booty bandit. And me? I stand in the foyer of the Echo Room 2.0. That's right. I bought the building next door. Rebuilt the concept from scratch. It's now a boutique retreat. Each suite named after a chapter of the podcast. Each room outfitted with custom smart home systems, monitored, of course, for quality assurance. Guests know the story. They book the experience. They listen to the podcast episodes on vinyl at check-in. We even have a jazz playlist. Curated by me. I've spoken at 4 podcasting conventions. Launched an audio network. Helped a dozen others tell their stories, people like me. People who were gaslit, ghosted, betrayed, and left to pick up the pieces alone. I call the new network EchoWorks. Tagline, because silence shouldn't be the last word. And Serena? She got hers. Not through fame, not through attention, but through irrelevance. She stopped trying, stopped posting, and eventually, stopped being a character in the story she once thought she owned. I stood at the window one night, looking out over the city, jazz playing low, Alexa lights casting that same amber glow she once used for her drop-in performances. And I whispered, "Alexa, play something honest." It played nothing, which, for once, was perfect, because the echo is finally quiet, and I'm finally free. And subscribe to the channel